Episode 314. Today we're talking about some game seven standouts between the Leafs and the Panthers yesterday. We saw Florida take it away and outscored the Leafs in their last two home games 12-2. And pretty surprising. Coming into this, I didn't know what version of the Leafs we were gonna get. I don't think anyone really knew. I think early on in the series is very much in favor of the Leafs, how they were playing. They were getting a lot of offense early on, and for some reason they just kind of went back into the same old Leafs that they usually are later on in the series, which I was surprised by and didn't really expect. And I've always wanted Toronto to play well. I've always wanted Toronto to advance and see some success out of this group because we've never seen it before. It'd be unique to have a team like the Leafs in the conference final potentially since we've never seen it before in a very long time, but obviously things didn't work out. And it's hard to say what needs to be fixed with them. I don't really envision Mitch Marner coming back to the team. I would imagine there's going to be some changes offensively and up front because more of their issues were on the offensive side than the defensive side and in net this postseason. Obviously, if they had Anthony Stolarz, I think they would have been more effective with Anthony Stolarz throughout the series, but even with Joseph Woll, I don't think the Leafs were good enough, and they needed more offense to support themselves. And you can't win against Florida scoring only one or two goals a game, and especially being outscored in those home games, 12-2, was scoring only twice in those home games, those last two home games. You need more offense out of your top guys, and you need more offense and more offensive capability out of those guys. For some reason, when the moment gets bigger, they seem to shrink. And I don't know if that's just a mental thing or what it is. It's harder to really explain Toronto anymore because it's been the same storyline the past 8, 9 years, and they just don't seem to change. And it obviously hasn't worked out with this core. Something needs to change now. But just with the Leafs moving forward, I would imagine, and it feels like we've said the same thing every offseason with them, but they need to have changes because clearly, and it's been right in front of their eyes for a very long time, this core does not work together. And it's unfortunate because it's a really good team, a really good core, and somehow a very productive team in the regular season, but come playoff times, it's the same story every year. And with guys like Austin Matthews nearing 30 and Mitch Marner and Nylander and all those guys, and even John Tavares, he's almost 35. I think you need to have more. You need something else. You need something different. You need to change up the vibe a little bit. Somehow, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they need to change it up and they need to find a way to just be a different team. And they need more postseason scores. I think their biggest issue that they're going to address this offseason is more offensively because their offense very much dried out. And it was there in games one and two when they were at home. And then from that point on, it just kind of stagnated off. And they weren't able to generate a lot in games three, four, five, and six, and then in seven. It's just a confusing thing to explain. And there's no real words for it. And like with the Leafs, I think this postseason, Matthew Knies was their most consistent player. And if you're talking about offense, and I think he was one of the more unique style players because he brings a playoff style pedigree, brings a playoff style of game. And that's what you want out of him. I think he brings a unique element to this group that they don't really have, and he's gonna get locked up this offseason, I would imagine. But with the guys like Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares, it's confusing why they don't show up, and it's confusing why they don't produce. You need those guys to produce. You need those guys to be relied upon in all situations. You need those guys to be your top guys at the biggest moments of the game, and it just wasn't there. And then outside of that, I think with Florida, they just had offense from everybody. It was Sam Reinhart. It was Barkov. Seth Jones was in the mix in this game. He almost had two goals if one of them didn't get disallowed. So he could have had two goals in this game. I thought Seth looked amazing. Ekblad looked great. And who else am I missing? I talked about Reinhart. I talked about Barkov. There's Brad Marchand in that mix as well. And even their third line, their whole third line was really effective, which is of course, something that they need to have. And when Florida has their depth guys going, they're hard to stop. And this isn't just their third line, but also their second line too is very productive. And Sam Bennett was great throughout this game. Like just a lot of guys up and down the lineup who were making an impact. Even their fourth line. The fourth line was a line in games 6 and 7 I thought were very effective. And that was really good for the Panthers. They needed that because they needed to have those guys be reliable defensively, be more of a shutdown line, be a line that can negate impact off the rush for the opposing team and stuff like that. Just not the most exciting things, but things that can allow your team to be successful and have those matchups against top end guys. I think it was very important for those guys to have that playing on the PK and stuff like that. And but that line was very effective too. It wasn't just their top nine, it was their fourth line. It was also very effective throughout this game. And yeah, I don't know what the Leafs are going to do moving forward. It's hard to explain what is wrong with them anymore because it's the same issue, it seems like every year. And they actually got better defensively and in net last offseason and were better in net and defensively for this season. So it wasn't that, it's more on the offensive side. I think they're going to make some changes offensively more than anywhere else. And I'm curious to see where those changes end up going for them long term.